Signor Presidente del Parlamento.
Mr. President of the European Parliament, Martin, Madam Prime Minister Helle, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, mayors, presidents of regions, guests. We're now basically at the end of this 5th European Summit of Regions and Cities. And I think we'll go home having learned a great deal, having attended fascinating debate, listened to inspiring speeches over the last couple of days. On behalf of the Committee of the Regions, I'd like to thank the representatives of the European institutions who have honoured us with their presence during our summit: Martin Schulz, Helle Thorning-Schmidt, and yesterday José Manuel Barroso. I think that all of us have worked extremely hard on this, and it shows, as the speakers said this morning and President Barroso said yesterday, how important the links are between our institutions and the importance for European institutions that representatives of regions and cities have. I'd also like to thank Frank Jensen, the Mayor of Copenhagen, who is with us today, the President of the Capital Region, Vibeke Storm Rasmussen, as for the assistance provided during the organisation of this event. I think that we have achieved the goal which we set ourselves. I mean, putting the European city back into its contemporary context, sensibly, without complacency and without being excessively idealistic. What we wanted to do was try to link up the various approaches, the various disciplines and various levels of experience, looking at the external political concept of European governance as well as the internal dimension of citizens' participation. Both of those are crucial. European governance, the wide focus is important, but the small focus on individual citizens is vital too. Our commitment as far as Rio+20 is concerned means that we have to try to meet economic challenges which are part and parcel of the move towards a green economy, and to deepening our views and ideas about the best way of linking up rural and urban spaces. We also want to look at the fabric of urban Europe from a different viewpoint, looking at how it fits on the broad scale onto the global competition field in which we're playing, and at a lower level, at a smaller focus, links between cities and other living centres, whether they be in the countryside or other urban areas as well as regions. We also, I think, did well when we asked Jan Gehl and Alfonso Vergara to introduce issues relating to the architectural dimension and the question of town planning as into our debate, and they both made fascinating speeches on those subjects this morning. And once again, I think we achieved what we had set out to do. We listened to a series of viewpoints between technicians, town planners, as well as our elected representatives at city and regional level. People who have hands-on experience and have also, of course, become technically very adept simply because of the jobs that they've been doing. Ladies and gentlemen, fireworks often end with a large final flourish and cannon fire. I think that we've already had our final flourish with the speeches made by Martin and Helle, so I'm not going to try and compete with them. What I'll do is focus my attention on the powerful message which is coming out of this summit, a message which will echo in our minds after all of the festivities and the good memories which we will bring home with us. But the future of Europe will be decided in our cities. When I say that, I don't mean a kind of medieval city surrounded by its walls, or the huge contemporary megalopolis walled off by ring roads. What I mean is the street, the square, the houses, the public buildings where people coexist and where citizenship can flower. In the last 50 years, it's not just national borders that have become a lot less clear, with new IT and the growth of the tertiary sector in our economies on the one hand, and also huge decentralization movements. Administrative and territorial borders have become vaguer as well. We saw this very clearly this morning in the presentation by Mr. Vergara. We're now talking about this European diagonal axes and different ways of linking our cities up. The relations between urban and rural areas have completely changed. We're looking at different ways of cooperation which seem to vary infinitely depending on the unique characteristics of the area concerned. Rational use of a natural space which is becoming rarer and rarer, and harmonious development of land and territory, this so-called territorial cohesion which we such great store by in Europe, are huge challenges. They need rules, and particularly the development of synergies between areas which are linked one to another geographically, villages, cities and regions. The challenge of climate change, excessive use of natural resources. In both of these areas, cities are in the front line for trying to achieve sustainable development. We need to see cities making progress as far as housing policy is concerned, urban regeneration, the use and production of renewable energy, the reduction of greenhouse gas emission, using less water, better managing waste and resources in general, and public transport which is less polluting and able, in fact, not just to make our citizens' lives easier, but to make our cities more beautiful. They're also in the front line in our efforts to change our mindset as far as lifestyle and consumption is concerned. Our cities and their regions have the need to deal with education, training, health, mobility for their citizens, as well as requirements from industry, searching constantly for research and innovation and trying to become more competitive. At the same time, they are fighting budgetary restrictions, problems with cuts happening at all levels, and need to come up with new instruments to reflect the new situation. Support from the European Union, therefore, in this context is particularly significant, and backing for cohesion policy and new financial instruments, project bonds, for example, is absolutely vital today. We talked about this as well, financial engineering, as we call it, to try to meet the extraordinary levels of demand, but also the extraordinary opportunities which exist in our cities as well. Our cities represent, along with rural communities, the lowest level, but I think the finest level of solidarity, intergenerational, intercultural solidarity first of all, guaranteeing access to public services, decent housing, and particular saying no to segregation carried out at a spatial level. I really think that we have the conditions in place for a European renaissance. I'm not just talking about urban planning and the built environment, energy saving, but first and foremost a kind of human renaissance, and cities turning again to being places that are welcoming and where people can live well. It's vital, therefore, that we remember that everything that I've said about cities can apply equally well to the member states of the European Union. Cities aren't just functional areas which regulate flows, they're vital elements in democracy. They're areas where power is exercised and public policies are implemented as we respect our European model. They are part and parcel of the various levels of governance. They're links in the chain of reconciliation which will bind the European Union to its citizens once again. And it's with that awareness, with that commitment and that desire to move forward that I thank our guests, I thank all of the people who have attended the conference, the summit, and I say to you that we obviously will never stop fighting for our cities and fighting for our regions. The battle begins again in the next few months as various European funds and policies are being shaped, and I'm pleased to note that the other European institutions, the Parliament and the Council and the Commission, will be at our side as we fight these battles, that people who are genuinely friends of the cities and regions in Europe. Thank you for listening, but please don't go, because we still have our declaration to go.